Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the November the 11th or November the 12th Planning Commission meeting. And I'd like to ask you if you've got any kind of electronic device, phones or whatever, please deactivate those so we don't get interrupted during the meeting. With that, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for October the 22nd, and we may not have enough here to do that.
Move approval.
We do?
Because we didn't have anybody
Okay.
absent last time, so we can.
Okay. Got a motion? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? All voted aye. The next item is the continuance request.
Yes, we have uncontested requests for continuance. There are 4 items on the agenda. That would be item B31 for case C6739. These are all to defer these cases to December 10th. Item B32 for case C6708. Item B33 for PUD 1598. And item B34 for C6772, again to defer to December 10th.
Is there anybody here that would like to say anything about those 4 continuances?
Move approval of the continuances.
Second.
Let the record show.
We also have several new requests for continuance. There are 5 items. All of these are requesting to defer to December 10th as well. It would be item B6 on the agenda, which is case C5685. Item B16, which is case PC 10276. Item B17 for C6539. Item B18 for DA 24408. And item B22 for case PV096.
Do we have anybody here wishing to speak on any of those items?
Move the new request.
Second.
Would you come up to the microphone, please? Would you state your name and address, please?
Leah Smethurst.
Oh, you're,
Leah Smethurst, 728 Northeast 39th Street.
okay, which one are you here for?
For PC 10276.
276.
Yeah, number 16.
Okay. Is the applicant here? What is your, are you protesting or?
I just wanted to get more information about it. I live on that street, and if they're trying to zone this commercial, I'm concerned what it's going to do for our neighborhood.
We've deferred it to the 10th, so can you come back at that particular time?
I can. Why is it being deferred? I'm just wondering.
The applicant isn't here, so, you know, we can't do much without the applicant.
Okay.
We talked to the applicant on the phone, and because there was only 5 members here, and particularly because Commissioner Cooper was not here, he requested it be continued.
JJ, perhaps you can give
We'll get the information to the applicant.
information so that she can contact either Lee or the applicant before the meeting in the next 2 weeks, so you get some more information.
That would be great. Thanks.
But get that from JJ. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
I'm here about the same case.
Okay.
I'm from California.
Okay.
So I won't be back on the 10th.
Make sure you get that information to him, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All of those in favor of the motion? Record show all voted aye. Yeah.
I wanted just to say to the gentleman from California that you certainly are welcome to submit any comments to us. Sir, you certainly are welcome to submit any comments to us in writing if you're not able to return. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the consent agenda. I'm sorry, is there any other request for continuances? Okay. Consent agenda.
Okay, on the consent docket, I'm going to read the 4 items on there. Case PC 10433 to rezone 320 North Morgan Road from AA to I-2. Item 2 is ABC 846 to do an ABC 2 overlay of the C3 district located at 300 Outlet Shops Drive. Item 3 is case C6768, the final plat of Northwest 145th and Penn, located east of Penn and north of Memorial. And the last item is C6770, the final plat of Park Place Heights, Phase 1, located east of Morgan and north of Southwest 44th Street.
Do we have anybody here on the consent agenda? Yes, sir. You need to come up to the microphone, please.
Keith Miller.
State your name and address, please.
Keith Miller with TCE Holdings, which is the Ted's Cafe Escondido Restaurants. I live at 2740 Northwest Grand in Oklahoma City.
Are you protesting?
No,
Or?
no, I'm the applicant.
Oh, okay. Well, it's on the consent, so it's
Okay.
taken care of. Thank you.
Move the consent docket.
Got a motion and a second to move the consent docket. All those in favor, let the record show all voted aye.
Under items requiring separate vote, case number 5, ED 213, to dedicate a street and utility easement located east of May Avenue and south of Northwest 150th Street.
Good afternoon. Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll representing the applicant, and this is simply just an easement dedication. We're in agreement with the 2 TEs and would ask for your approval.
Any questions of the commission? And I have no protest. And we have anybody that would like to speak on that item? Chair would entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Got a motion second to approve item number 5. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Record show all voted aye.
Item 6 was deferred. Item 7 is SPUD 851 to rezone 4401 Southeast 118th Street from C3 and AA to SPUD 851.
Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Kerry Vogt. My address is 2509 Southeast 44th Street, Southeast 93rd Street,
Okay.
Oklahoma City.
If you remember, at the last Planning Commission meeting, I asked this gentleman to make some attempt to do elevations and so on and so forth. He has sent pictures. I have talked to him 2 or 3 times, or a couple of times on the telephone. I have no problem with what he's trying to do there. So I'm satisfied with what he's trying to do.
With that, I move approval of that.
Is there anybody
Do we-
else who might want to speak on
Do
this
we have
matter?
anybody wishing to protest? Okay, with that, I'll take
But
a,
that is what you're going to build, the pictures that you received on email, that is going to be it.
That kind of similar,
Okay, just because
similar
I think that the
options.
picture should be part of the application or the record. Okay?
is there a Mr. Vogt here?
That's me.
Okay. You just wanted to, I've got your
New to this.
application. Okay. Yeah. Did you make a motion? Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve item number 7. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye.
Thank you.
Item number 8 is CE 919 to close a portion of North Fred Jones Avenue north of West Main Street.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Zach Martin is also with me here on behalf of the development team. We deferred this several times. There was a protest that was registered by Young Brothers. My client has spent a lot of time working with Young Brothers to come up with a resolution so that their use could continue. This wouldn't cause any problems with their use, and we found a solution. Young Brothers is just north of the subject tract that we're seeking to close, and what we have agreed to do is modify some of the right-of-way, and in addition, we have filed a Board of Adjustment application for a 100-foot curb cut. That has satisfied their concerns, and that application was filed with staff last Friday. And so with that, they submitted the letter you see before you. We would ask for your approval. Cindy, do you have some of these pictures? I do. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Powers.
Is the approval you're asking for subject to approval by the board of that curb cut?
Sure. So it's going to work itself out because we still have to go to council and the Board of Adjustment, not to get any sort of conversation with you about this, will be heard in December for the curb cut. So,
The only question that I have is the conditional approval. If we do, why can't our approval be conditioned upon the Board of Adjustment approving what it is they want to do?
you'd have to ask your legal staff. I don't know if you can condition a
What do you think,
closing.
Dan? Can we do a conditional approval?
Sure.
That's what I'd prefer.
Sure, that's fine.
Rather than, because if you have every optimistic idea that you're going to get approved, I wouldn't like for us to say yes, and then something happens.
Sure.
So I would modify, my motion would be a conditional approval of this application conditioned upon the Board of Adjustment approving the application to provide what Young Brothers needs. Okay?
Fair enough.
Right.
I'm hopeful that the Board of Adjustment will be very receptive to our application.
Okay.
I have nobody signed up in protest for that item, so. Got a motion and a second on item number 8. All voted aye.
Thank you.
Item number 9 is SPUD 855 to rezone 1301 Southwestern from R1 and SRODD to SPUD 855.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Again, here on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Blair Humphreys is also with me. This is the first piece of a much larger project. This is for the Ferris wheel. That will be part of the Wheeler District. This has been a kind of a lengthy process. We got a revocable permit from the city to operate it. It was later found out that the zoning on the exact site maybe didn't satisfy the city, so we filed the SPUD. The SPUD then went to the Riverfront Design Committee last week. They unanimously approved, or recommended approval of the SPUD to the Planning Commission. We do have a video of a model very similar of what this Ferris wheel will be, and I want the Commission to be able to see the light show that we're discussing.
How long is the video?
35 minutes, like 10 seconds. So that's what. No. But I would like Blair to come up and address the commission just to kind of give them an update on the overall project.
Absolutely. Blair Humphreys, 1222 Northwest 20th. Honored to be before you. I think last time I was here we were providing kind of an update in progress presentation on Wheeler District. We're still actively working away. The Ferris wheel is still kind of the thing first on the drawing board to get developed. Development is a humbling process, and so everything is taking a little bit longer and costing a little bit more than I initially anticipated, but we're still very much committed to fulfilling the vision of the Wheeler District Master Plan that was put together by the citizens through our charrette process a little over a year ago. So the Ferris wheel, it'll serve as a gateway not just to the project and not along the river, but also, I think, to the entire Southwestern Avenue corridor and hopefully to the south side, and really, I hope, become just another part of the iconic mix of elements in and around downtown and throughout Oklahoma City. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Commissioners?
Well, I just have a really favorable comment and one question. Are you going to have EMD lights?
So, the visual, so you saw what it's intended to be.
And the other thing is that, bringing the Santa Monica Pier Ferris wheel, the old one, and there's still another one out there, along the Oklahoma River, isn't quite like the Ferris wheel along the Thames in London, but it's close, and I really do support the application. I think it's going to be a great addition to downtown and what downtown could be, and I don't know what else you have planned, but you've got 80-some acres to play with, but I like this. I like this application a lot.
Is it going to make noise?
The Ferris wheel itself will not make noise. There's, I guess, the opportunity that we could have elements that are set to be coordinated with the lights at some point. We don't currently have all the technological aspects of that worked out.
And would you have to have approval for that? I'm curious about that, just the sound.
Well, we will, our expectation would be, this land obviously is currently owned by the city, and we're able to use it through our revocable permit. We would anticipate that this area, along with the rest of our site, will come back through to this commission as part of a master plan PUD that would cover all of those issues.
Okay.
So I move approval.
I have no protest. I've got a motion and a second to approve. I'm sorry.
With all the conditions
Oh,
that are
yeah,
cited
the
in the staff
conditions,
report,
I'm
are you
sorry.
agreeable to all of those?
The ones from the Scenic River were obviously we keep the Scenic River designation on. Yes. So the design, I guess my only comment is, as long as the design meets with these conditions, obviously the design elements that are in this had to get specific design approval through the Scenic River Design Commission. So, yes, qualified that as long as what you see is permitted under the SPUD.
Okay.
So long as we're not agreeing to not be permitted.
Okay. Got a motion and a second, and all voted aye.
Thank you.
Got two protests on this one.
Item number 10 is SPUD 856 to rezone 7 South Mickey Mantle Drive from BC, DP, and FP to SPUD 856.
For you, the applicant, can I have your name and address, please?
Thank you, sir. Victor McAllister, B&T Engineering, 2833 Southwest 119th, on behalf of Verizon Wireless.
Can you give us an idea of what you're doing?
Well, basically what we're doing is we've been working with staff, and of course, per Planning Commission direction, we've gone to Bricktown this morning, committee, got approval there. Basically, all we're doing is adding some small antennas, 12-inch by 12-inch small antennas onto the JDM Place building. And there are currently antennas similar to that already in place. So we're going to paint to match for all direction.
Okay. Did the Bricktown Design Review Committee look at this?
Yes, they did.
And
They approved it this morning.
What did they say?
They approved it this morning.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commissioner or questions?
When are we going to know if these things work?
Excuse me?
When are we going to know if these things work?
How do we know if these things work?
When will we know?
Oh, I hope.
Wasn't this sort of a pilot program that they were doing here to see if...
This is a different one than there was a previous applicant that's come through for Verizon with a different type of technology. This one is more mainstream wireless.
Oh, okay.
So our intent is to hopefully have this on air in conjunction with the entire network, hopefully by third quarter this next year.
Okay.
I do have two wishing to speak on this item. Mr. Clark Cummings. I'd like to remind you also in our bylaws, 3-minute presentation, please.
3 minutes would be plenty of time. Clark Cummins, 202 East Sheridan Avenue. I'm with the Andrew Cummins Trust. We're across the street from this property. We are opposed to antennas in the heart of Bricktown. We feel it is not in compliance with the historical context of Bricktown. We do not believe that it's an oversight of the zoning in Bricktown. We believe the zoning is correct and should be adhered to. Our planned building will be directly across the street from this. Our offices literally will be feet from these antennas, and we feel it will detract from the best offices that we are planning to build. If we understand the economics of antennas, if antennas are going to be allowed in Bricktown, in the heart of Bricktown, next to the canal, we feel that all the buildings should be allowed to have them because they are a very profitable piece to a roof, and not just select roofs in Bricktown should be allowed to have antennas. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Victor McAllister? Okay, you're the applicant, right? Do we have anybody else in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Chair to entertain a motion.
Do I understand this is a 1 foot by 1 foot square on 1, 2, 3, 4 places on this building? And if the Bricktown Design Committee, Review Committee has already passed on this, I really appreciate and respect what they would have done. So in that event, I move approval of this application.
Got a motion to a second to approve the application. Let the record show all voted aye.
Okay, item number 11 is SPUD 857 to rezone 1149 Northwest 57th Street from R1 to SPUD 857.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mark Ritchie. I'm with Civil Design and Survey of Oklahoma. Here on behalf of the applicant, pleased to say we do agree with all of the TEs. I'm available for questions and would respectfully request approval.
The only question that I really had about this application had to do with your side yards, your separation. The properties to the west of this all have 2-story structures of one kind or another behind the main structure. So, and it backs up to a parking lot. So I don't have any objections to this. Is there anybody who wants to be heard on this matter? If not, I'll move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Do we have anybody in the audience wishing to speak in protest? I have nobody signed. The record show all voted aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 12 is SPUD 858 to rezone 15505 North Penn from R1 to SPUD 858.
Hello, my name is Steve Landes with Landron Group or Landron Engineering on behalf of the owner and the developer on this
Need
project.
your address also.
My address is actually 209 West 9th, Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Once again, my name is Steve Landes. What we're actually looking at doing here is a combined mixed-use PUD. The front office or the front area would actually be a O2 or O1, excuse me, type office complex. It'll be more of like a residential type development. And the back area will actually have primarily climate-controlled mini storages. Some of the smaller units really more designed for the the neighborhood areas around there. Realistically, we put the thing together, thought everything looked like it was in pretty good shape, worked with city staff on this one, and felt we were in pretty good condition. The only thing that happened, we got a few protest letters. The primary protest letters that we first kind of saw were basically tied to the property to the south of us is owned by a company by the name of 150th and Penn, which is a large development property that's actually looking at a 40-acre development of combined uses, which include mini storages, office complexes, shopping centers, and a whole wide range of uses. That group actually kind of put together a little effort to contact all the neighborhood associations around there, and I think I put some of the information in your packet about that. Since that time, we got the protest. We actually have tried to speak with all of the different neighborhood associations. The main one we talked to was to the north of us, which was the residents of Jefferson Gardens. Yesterday, we met with the HOA and spoke with all of them regarding what our development was all about, tried to go ahead and negotiate with them to put things together. And I think, matter of fact, most of the next 2 rows over here are actually there with that group, and I think they're actually here to speak in favor of our project at this time. Let them speak on their own behalf on that aspect of it. But what we'd looked at trying to do is go ahead and make sure we have good separation between the two, make sure the hours are actually good, and we have a good type of facility for that. We did try to contact all the other protesters. The group to the south of us actually originally weren't that interested in speaking. At 8 o'clock last night, I was informed that they would be happy to talk to us next week sometime. So they had actually looked about deferring it, but would really rather not defer it if possible. I think the primary reasoning behind some of their protests, or that group's not interest, is one of the primary clients within that new development is Switzer's Locker Rooms, which is kind of in competition of our facility as much as anything else, and an office complex that's in competition. Don't really see that opposition associated with competition is what the direction of this board should be, but we still would be happy to meet with them this next week to see if there's any ways we can go ahead and move, resolve any issues they might have to clarify things.
Have you seen the conditions? Do you agree,
yes,
do you
we
agree
feel
with those conditions?
we don't have any problem with any of those conditions, sir.
Okay. Commissioners? I do have one, yes. Okay, you want to listen to the protester, Mr. Shane Rieger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Rieger, representing the property owner to the south at 136 Thompson Drive. I'll be very brief.
Okay.
Our concern mainly is the buffering edge, and the gentleman suggested that I just contacted last night. Apparently, they tried to contact a different attorney for this owner, and the message didn't get through to me until yesterday, and this morning I was with you in another meeting, so I was not able to meet with them before this meeting. We very much, though, would appreciate if the item was postponed so we could discuss with them the buffering along the edge. I understand that they've worked with the neighbors to the north. We haven't had that opportunity yet. We would welcome that opportunity to make sure that we have an edge as well. What is planned, the gentleman talked about the whole area, but what is planned right up against that is residential. So we're very concerned about what that edge and what the buffering looks like along that south edge of their property, and we simply want the opportunity to sit down with them and discuss it and make sure we're on the same page with all of that. So we appreciate
That was my observation when I read the application. Well, actually, when I see the map that you just sent, when you jam it up on your property line.
Exactly. In fact,
that's going to require some fiddling around with your overall plan. So would you want to continue this for a couple of weeks so you can get with the property owner to the south?
Back to
We prefer to think if we'd go ahead and like to see if we could move forward with it. We'd be happy to meet with them to go through it. One of the things that we are looking at trying to do, the property owners to the north, of course, they actually have currently a wood stockade fence with brick columns and capstones and everything pretty nice. If you'll notice on that PUD application, we're trying to actually surround our development with the same type of an approach. One of the things from speaking with the adjacent neighborhood association, the property, you'll see within our pamphlets that they're looking at in the future directly south of our property is an apartment complex. And so we will actually consider looking at that apartment complex and see how we can actually do that. But really our attempt is to try to keep a good buffering between the two and make sure everything looks nice. In fact, I think that the fencing approach on what we're looking at is a combination of columns and a vinyl fence and something like that to go ahead and create a security. And basically we're trying to put together a really nice looking type of facility for this.
if I could, Mr. Commissioner, you hit on it exactly. There's buildings proposed right up against the property line, so the fencing is a different location. It doesn't do anything for us. We need to figure out what's happening along that edge. So we would ask for deference so that we can...
Even though you don't know what's happening on your property?
Now, we have plans for multifamily along that edge, residential along that edge. How that works along the exact boundary, how do you do drainage? How do you do maintenance? How do they get to the exterior of their building to maintain it? All of those issues we need to work out with that developer to make sure we understand what's going to happen.
I noticed that this PUD 288, which is, 30 years ago or whatever it was, what all is permitted on PUD 288? Everything?
I apologize, Commissioner, I don't know. I wasn't involved at the time.
I'm assuming it'll be the kitchen sink, because that's what PUDs were back there. And so, well, I don't know what.
Could we, if we approve it, could there be a time that you could get with him and work with him between now and council?
I'm sorry. After receiving his email this morning, we feel 100% this next week. We'd like to have a meeting right now before we go to city council. We'll be able to meet later this week or beginning next week to convenience, just to go through it.
We would certainly prefer that the commission wait for their review until we have an opportunity to see how close we can get on those terms. I would hesitate to wait until city council with
Given that there are people here that are I assume, wanting to be heard on this matter, maybe it would be better just to kick this to the end of the docket and, give them some time to sit down and talk and see if we can't resolve this today so all these people don't have to come back here.
Do you agree with that? Okay. We'll move it to the end of the docket, and then we'll call you back up.
Commissioner, I do not have my client with me, so I'll have to somehow figure that out by phone, and I don't know that that's going to work very well until we sit down with our plans and their plans. So I'd much prefer to have the opportunity to sit over a table and with both clients and plans.
Well, I have another issue that I'd like to address, and that is I see the architecture of the office buildings, but I don't see anything about what the storage facilities are going to be built of, what the pitch of the roofs are, what the materials are, the colors, et cetera, because you are adjacent to your land in the south, and you're betting on the property line of the fitness center as well. Those folks haven't shown up, and I just think it's something that you need to address, particularly with this protester, the people in the south, and continue it for 2 weeks, because at the end of the docket, you're not going to be prepared to do diddly, and
before you comment to that, would you come over to this other microphone, please? Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, speaking with respect to a lot of that stuff, we met with the homeowner association to the north yesterday, which is primarily the residential developments that are there at the time. We did actually tell them, and we've spoke with them about not only looking at that, but once we actually complete final development plans, we actually have tried to sit down with them, and we'll basically try to get their approval. So we've done everything we can. We feel completely, we will do the exact same thing with these gentlemen as well. In fact, like I said, we tried to contact everybody that would be associated with it that actually did file a protest to try to actually respond and discuss things. Like I said, it was originally contacted the person who was defined as being in charge with Penn 50th and Penn, 150th and Penn, LLC, and that attorney that responded to us said, we don't have any interest in speaking with you, in fact. So therefore, then this morning we received the second one.
Let me clarify. I think that attorney actually, my understanding was they didn't know anything about it. I'm not sure they said that we don't have any interest in. I think they had no idea what it was about. They were simply contacted out of the blue and had no clue what the matter was about.
What's your pleasures, Commissioner? What do you want to do? Okay, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'd move to continue this until the next scheduled planning commission meeting, give him time to you and you get together, and also to give us the idea of what the construction of the storage units are going to be, what those look like, et cetera.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mr. Wilder right here, they actually have a few of the mini storages out there, so I think he could explain.
Is that acceptable to continue it?
It is for us, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yes, if we're going to need to work through, my name is Damon Wilds, by the way. I'm a managing member of the property owners that are purchasing the property. We would intend to state that we have dealt with the properties to the north as well.
Okay.
And the buffer zone that we're putting in between the facilities is a very nice buffer zone with brick column, vinyl fencing so that it won't fade out, so on and so forth. We have diligently spent many hours in developing this project as a very high-end project with the office complexes that are being built and divided up in here. Something I would kind of pass along for the gentleman over here, that this is about a $10.5 million project, so we're not going in at this as a cheap-built project or trying to be a fly-by-night office complex. It's going to be a full facility. I do apologize that there's no pictures of the storage facility, as we're, in this particular facility, going to go with earth tone colors like a beige color building with green accent colors as well. And in the particular address that I was asked, the building height, the maximum building height is 8'6" on quarter 12.
I need your name and address.
I'm sorry, my name is Damon Wiles, address 521 Pulse Drive in Guthrie, Oklahoma.
Okay. Ma'am, did you have something to say on that?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
What's your name and address?
I'm Lois Daniels, 2110 Northwest 55th Street, and I'd like to speak for those of us who are here from Jefferson's Garden today, because we have gotten all the information about the requirements for this development, and these gentlemen, as they said, did meet with us yesterday, and we were very pleased with what we saw, what they told us, what it would look like, the buffer that we would have. And so I want you to know that from our point of view. And there actually were some residents who sent in a signature on this protest, but that was before they really knew what it was all about. It was just sent from this 150th and Penn LLC, and they thought that they were doing the right thing, but many have rescinded that, and the common consensus of our community is that we very much would like to see this development come in.
Thank you very much.
Let me add, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. The problem I have is what Mr. Rieger referred to as these buildings that back up basically on the lot line to the south, and maintenance, painting, whatever, on those particular buildings. That's troublesome to me because it is evident that the applicant does not have an agreeable, that they're not in agreement with the property owner to the south that that's acceptable, because they will have to be on their property to maintain it. And so, you know, I mean, for me, we have two routes here. We can either move to approve this, and you have to get all 5 of us to vote for approval, or we move to deny it and it goes straight to council. That's correct. So your other option would be to continue it, which would not be till December 10th, if memory serves me correct. And I'm not, of the 5, I'm not comfortable with that scenario of those buildings on the property line.
Can I offer another option on this right here?
I need you at the microphone.
I'm sorry. One of the other options, and one of the things that you've just brought up is concern. We put together this layout on the back on the mini storage. It was to put that together just a certain number of units. The primary goal of this is to actually have climate-controlled, averages 10 by 15 size units or smaller, which are really defined not for trucks or larger storage. It's for individual residential type storage, for personal storage. One of the concerns that you've just brought up is it appears that one building that we have that's actually shown on that property line, we actually kind of have a line down through there kind of intended for a drainage. This area I don't think is defined as the requirement of actually having detention. But we will be happy to, should you actually look at an option on this and say we'd like to have at least a 5 or 10 foot buffer from our property line towards those first buildings, we'd be happy to look at that as an option.
5 foot for sure, and as we develop this property, we've actually already discussed this once, that being built, it represents on the property plan that is being built on the property line, and that is not my intention at all. We would like to have it out at least 5 foot off the fence, and that's mostly for maintenance issues like Todd just mentioned, that we would like to be able to get to the back of that building as well as to maintain the fence. And that is something that I've noticed on this plan as well, now that you've pointed it out. Again, that we never got that actually transitioned on the plan to remove that buffer zone. The fence line that will be there will have a buffer zone between the building and the fence zone for maintenance, which we will concrete behind the building as well, so there will be no grass or shrubbery growing in there so that we don't have any kind of maintenance issues there.
I think our best bet at this point is to continue the item until December the 10th.
Okay.
We've already got indication that there would only be 4 votes, so that would be a denial. And with that, I think probably would be better to continue it and get some of these items resolved and go with that. Would you be agreeable?
I would agree to continue.
Okay.
May we continue this to the next meeting, which is December the 10th?
Got a motion and a second to continue item number 12. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Record show all voted aye.
Item number 13 is CE 925 to close a 15-foot east-west alley located at 1113 North Classen Boulevard.
Mr. Chairman, Dennis Box. I'm here on behalf of the applicants along with Keith Gibson. And this is a case that our clients have purchased all the properties except for the daycare. The daycare actually takes they have access off West Park Place. So unlike the closing that you all saw at the last meeting, which is south of 10th Street, we don't think this would have any negative impact on access. They are going to develop the entire property, less than except the daycare facility that they don't own. Staff has looked at it. They have no objection, and we'd ask your support.
Commissioners? Nobody signed up?
Move approval.
The motion and a second to approve item 13. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye.
Thank you very much.
Item 14 is C6771, the final plat of the Grove Phase 10 located west of May Avenue and north of Northwest 178th Street.
Good afternoon. Tim Johnson with Johnson & Associates here on behalf of the applicant. We've reviewed the TEs and we agree with all of them. We'd ask for your approval.
Commissioners? I have nobody signed up.
Move approval.
Got a motion and a second to approve item 14, I'm sorry. Director show all voted aye.
Thank you.
Item 15 is C6769, the revised preliminary plat of the Brook located north of Northwest Expressway and west of Piedmont Road.
Again, Tim Johnson on behalf of the applicant. As described, this is a piece of property that had a preliminary plat on it before, and we have resubmitted this with a little bit of a different design. It has limited access off of Northwest Highway, so for the first limited number of sections, it'll have that single access, which is Boulevard off of Northwest Highway. But there is an easement that is already recorded up at the northeast corner that takes you back out to the east Piedmont Road. I received a copy of a letter this morning from the staff. I think you all have received that. Some concerned neighbors to our east, primarily regarding flooding. We've looked into that, and the existing culvert under Piedmont Road is undersized and needs to be addressed. And I think as part of our final design, obviously this is just a preliminary plat, but in part of our final design, we will address the drainage and the impact of our drainage on that existing condition as part of our submittal. We do agree with all the TEs.
Commissioners? I have nobody signed up.
To extend 122nd Street to the east. It shows on our, just as a kind of dotted line.
Yeah, I think it's just showing that's not part of our plat because it's already a recorded easement.
Okay.
And yes, that is the intent. That'll make our second connection to the east.
Okay.
And as you can see, we've lined up with the other two connections to the west.
Right.
Nobody signed up, Commissioners? A motion and a second to approve item 15. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Record show all voted aye.
Items 16, 17, and 18 were continued. Item 19 is SPUD 854 to rezone 5541 Southeast 149th from AA to SPUD 854.
Is the applicant here? Are you the applicant, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm the applicant, sir.
I need your name and address, please.
My name is Ghulam Sarkar, and this is the address. Sorry. It is 5441 Southeast 49th Street.
Okay, is that your residential
Oh,
address?
no, sir.
Okay.
It's 1151 Marbella Drive, Oklahoma City.
Okay, tell us what you plan on doing.
We're planning on building a convenience store and gas station.
Do you agree with the technical evaluations in the staff report?
I'm sorry, sir?
There's a list of, on page 10, of the technical evaluations, the conditional approval of the staff, and there are a list of six requirements that the staff is requesting before we approve this application. Have you read the TEs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you agree with all of them?
Yes, sir.
That's no EMD signs, 8-foot tall signs, 5-foot sidewalks on Southeast 149th Street, a traffic impact analysis. You agree with all those?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I've got one protester and Joseph Glenn. I'm not a protester. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay. So I have nobody signed up in protest.
Well, I'll move approval with the TEs attached to the approval.
Got a motion and a second to approve item 19. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye. Thank you, sir.
Item 20 is C6763, the final plat of Timber Ridge Estates, located south of Northwest Expressway and east of Frisco Road.
My name is Brad Reed with Craft and Toll, 214 East Main. I'm representing the applicant on this. This final plat is it's with the approved preliminary plat. There were some comments that we addressed with staff. We agreed to all staff comments and ask you to approve this. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners? We've got one that's not here. We've got one commissioner that's not here. Do we wait until he gets back? Okay. I'm sorry. Nobody? Sorry for the delay. We're kind of short-handed today, so. Okay, go ahead.
If you guys have any particular questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, questions? Yeah, there's one letter is all. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak in protest? Just the letter's all.
I have a question about the letter and the statement that you've been dumping dirt, you've been doing dirt work on this particular piece of property without having any approval at all. Is that right?
We had a stormwater permit. We had a permit through stormwater, but that has been resolved. The developers met with that individual, met with him a couple days ago. They agreed to take care of silt fence, remove some of the dirt that they had in question, and that has been included in our final plat as a private drainage easement, so nothing will be put in there.
For the record, David Box, 522 Colcord. I was involved on the zoning aspect of this. Jason is here. He's a developer. He has worked with the individual, submitted a letter, and has an email saying that he's fine. So he has been working with that person and has satisfied any concern.
Are we agreeable with all the conditions?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and there's 7 of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioners?
Move approval.
Do I hear a second? Got a motion and a second to approve item number 20. All those in favor? The record show all voted aye.
Item number 21 is PUD 1591 to rezone 2100 South Sarah Road from R1, R3, R4, PUD 232, and PUD 1149 to PUD 1591.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Ron Walters is also here, as well as Kendall Dillon, who's the civil engineer. This is an application that has been continued for several months, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Irwin and all the neighbors that have worked with us hand in hand on this process. What we have is a tract of land that was formerly a golf course. As this commission will remember, there was an application that came before it probably a year or so ago for a plat, and that platted, and it's to the east, it platted 2 holes of the golf course. And what happened is, once this golf course went into hands of somebody that didn't have any intention of developing it as a golf course, the viability of that golf course is gone, furthered by the plat that has already been approved, and they're currently developing what was 2 holes of that golf course. With that said, when we started out this process, the PUD looked very different than what it looked today. I think it's important, though, to start with what the current zoning is on the site. It's kind of a hodgepodge of different things, but a lot of it is already zoned R1, and then you have some chunks of R3. So rather than just coming in with only a piece that we needed to rezone for the senior living, we included all of the R1 to get those architectural standards, but also to allow us the opportunity to meet with the neighbors, come up with some suggestions, come up with some ways to modify the PUD that might satisfy the neighbors. And so what we have now is a much different product than what we started with. I'll just start here at the bottom in track 3. Initially, the road wasn't up against the homes like this. Initially, the road was further up here so that you would have backyards abutting backyards. The folks on the south asked, could we change that road, push it up against us? We used to look out on a golf course. We don't want to look out onto someone's stockade fence or a backyard. Their preference was put the road there so that we're looking out onto people's front yards. We did that. We modified that, so that's why that reflects that. Next in track 2. What you see now is a layout that represents a design similar to the Muirfield Village, the Edinburgh, those developments that the commission is now becoming, keenly aware of. It's a very successful product for people who are looking to downsize and empty nesters. Initially, it didn't look like this, though. We had the road that went through the middle, and we had houses on both sides of it. So there was a request that, you put the road up against them on the south. Can you try to do that here? And we accommodated that. And so what you see now is a result of that. We pushed the road up, and what we have now is private drives serving each of those lots. The result was we lost 7 lots. So pursuant to R1, we would have had around 57. We're down to 50 now. But what you have is the street up here. This one doesn't do that good of a job. Where's the tree up? What you'll have is on the other side of the street, you'll have a row of trees. So they won't be looking out on the backyard. They'll be looking out over a row of trees, then the street, and you'll be looking, into lawns and yards. Again, it's R1. What we have here is an R1 product, single family. But what we've also done here is attached a requirement that it's all 55 and older. It's all age restricted in this because this part, track 2, is meant to serve as a component of Tract 1 in the overall development scheme. So when we get to Tract 1, what we have is senior independent living. Again, it's age restricted, and it's drafted into the PUD, 55 and older. But we still sat down, worked through issues with neighbors. What we came up with was the following modifications. Only 20% of all the structures in Tract 1 can be more than one story. Additionally, there's a tract right here that's outlined in the white. The entirety of that is required to be single story. There was a fear of having multiple families in one structure. So, one family on the first floor, a separate family on the second floor. What we've done is drafted language in here to eliminate that. So any two-story unit would have to just be one family or one living unit that just happened to be two-story, but not your traditional, typical multifamily type of structure. We limit the entirety of Tract 1 to only 2 5-plexes. An additional concern that the neighbors had was the connectivity between Tract 2 and 1 and possibly creating some sort of thoroughfare where, to avoid a certain stoplight, you could come from here and weave your way through the neighborhood. So what we've agreed to do is provide no connection between the two. That should satisfy that concern. Additionally, we agreed to a minimum square footage for those homes in Tract 2 of 1,400 square feet. Initially, while that might sound small, we have to keep in mind that the product that this is designed for is 55 and older. It's people who are trying to downsize. They're trying to get to a smaller house, and so with that age restriction, there's not much higher we could go for a minimum. In talking to Commissioner Irwin, we know one of the concerns that's out there is traffic. So what we've agreed to do is we will provide a traffic study as part of our platting process. This application didn't meet the threshold required for a TIA, but we have agreed that we will do one as part of our platting process and see what improvements may be warranted based on this development. Additionally, there is drainage issues throughout all of this part of Oklahoma City. We spent a lot of time dealing with that. I think it's important to note that significant effort was spent designing this project so that it was out of the floodplain and floodway. And there is very little, if any, of this development, as you see, that is in the floodplain or floodway. That's one of the policies of the comp plan, and we have adhered to that. There are other developments right in close proximity where they've actually had to pull things out of the floodplain to develop. That is not our intention. But before we can turn a shovel of dirt, the civil engineer is going to have to do a very expensive, very thorough, detailed drainage analysis. That will have to be signed off on by the city. It will have to be signed off on by FEMA and any other governmental agency that controls drainage in these creeks. So we're confident that there may be some issues. There may even be some pieces that we can't develop. But whatever this study says is we're going to have to live with that. That, combined with the effort made to stay out of the floodplain, we are confident that we aren't going to create a problem. We believe that it's a tough track, and you can see how much of the development that my client owns isn't actually going to be developed. And it's a significant amount. Additionally, one of the concerns was what's going to happen north of Tract 1 between the neighborhood and this portion. Well, we didn't have any plans for it. So what we did is we revised the PUD, and we made Tract 4 its own tract within the PUD so that it's limited to community recreation and those types of uses that are common in neighborhood amenity areas. What it also does is, as you can tell, it provides a significant buffer from any development in our PUD to the neighborhood. It's approximately 150 to 200 feet of a buffer that they're going to have that's going to be able to keep in its natural state. Maybe there's gazebos, maybe there's some other type of use, but the way the PUD is written, it is limited to recreational type amenity uses in that area. So with that, we truly believe that this is a good infill site. When we look at development proposals, this commission is faced with sprawl. We're faced with pushing out the boundaries of where we're developing, extending those sewers, extending the water. Well, when we look at infill developments, one of the goals is let's use land that is undeveloped now where we already have city services. Well, that's what we have here. We have all the city services. We have a vacant piece of land. We have a development that would fill a need in this market segment for senior independent living. And we think it's a plan that will be successful and one that will be in harmony with the neighborhood. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. We ask for your approval.
Commissioners, you want to hear from the protesters first? Let me remind the protesters that I know we've got 3 signed up, and we don't want to hear items 2 or 3 times. We want to hear new items. And let me remind you, you've got a 3-minute time limit, and we'll try to hold you to that pretty much. The first person I've got is Ruth George. Your name and address, please.
Yes, I'm Ruth George, and I live at 9920 Thompson Avenue.
Okay.
We back up to the golf course on the north side of it. And as I understand, they're going to build awfully close to our property lines. And there are no condos, there are no apartment buildings anywhere within that area that I don't care if you look on the south, the north, the east, or the west. So I think most of the people who live in that area are opposed to any condos or apartment buildings. I would not be opposed, and I think most of the others wouldn't, if there were decent housing, individual housing, and individual-sized lots that kind of compare with the other areas, because most of us have at least a 2,500 square foot home. There are a few that are just a little bit less, but what they are planning on building is quite a bit smaller on smaller lots, which in my opinion, and most of the people I've talked to, that lowers the value of our homes. We have had our house on the market for about 6 months, and every time we have a buyer that comes along and looks, they love the house, but they don't know what's going to happen behind us, and if there's condos or apartments, they don't want to buy it.
Thank you. Are you aware that and I believe I heard this right, that the smaller houses are going to be 55 and above?
Yes.
I mean, that will be part of the plan unit development.
Right.
It'll be written in, and that will be adhered to. Okay.
They've already started digging behind our house.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mary Garrison. You'll have to come to the microphone, ma'am. And I need your name and address, please.
Mary Garrison, 2005 Edinburgh. And I would like to defer to Mr. Lawson because I don't want to cover something that he's going to cover, if that's all right.
Thank you. We got one more here, if I can get it unstuck here. Clary Larson. Is it Lawson? Lawson, I'm sorry.
Commissioner, I've been called worse. My name is Marty Lawson, 2113 Edinburgh Drive, and I thank Mary for deferring some time to me. First of all, I think that everybody is aware of the substantial amount of protest letters that are out there. I don't really want to get into that issue. I would like to recognize city staff, the applicant, Ron Walters, the attorney, the engineers. They truly have worked with us on this project, and I appreciate the time that they took to do that. In the PUD, there is mention that David brought, it's actually in section 9.13, and it had to do with the multi-level, and that was an important part to us, that we didn't want a townhome style design where you have living on the lower floors and your bedrooms and things on the upper, but what we were very much opposed to was having an apartment complex style where you have one family on the first floor and another family up above that. The language they put in here in 9.1.3 is there should be no secondary story outside entrances to any two-story structures constructed in Track 1 of this PUD. And I take it, and David and I have talked about that, what that means is it would eliminate that type of a design. So if there is clarity on that's the way it would be, we would be okay with that. But I do have a concern about that as to whether or not there truly is clarity in any way that we could have that apartment style. Likewise, I wanted to bring up the issue of flooding. Now, we understand the process, that the city engineers will look at this. David has agreed, and that, there's going to have to be studies to this done, and that was something that was also of concern to us. We have shown the pictures up here in this commission of the flooding that goes on out there. We have shown it to the engineer, the applicant engineer, to the applicant, to the attorney. We've even shown it to mayor and council. And our concern is that we understand that when you do these studies, things can work out. But the citizens are skeptical of that because they've lived out there for a long time, and they've seen it in the real world of how that flooding comes in. And one of the commissioners, I don't know which, Bob, it might have been you. I hope I'm not saying something that you didn't say, but somebody stated earlier on that, we're getting kind of tired of these 100-year floodings every 5 years. And that's what we've experienced out there is these times when flooding has come up. There is in the staff report a comment in here where they are saying, it's on page 15, it says, however, it is unclear if the buffers are 100 feet from the stream banks. So where I would probably put my strongest urge to everybody in taking in consideration, all the decision makers, take this matter very seriously. Please take this matter very seriously. If we have flooding in those homes, we have to have restitution somehow. We don't want it to happen. And so I would just urge everybody to be very diligent about that, make sure that the right plans are out there, all the consideration is taking place, because that would be the most damaging thing that could happen with this development if these homes start flooding inside the houses. So far they haven't. They have gotten very close. So far they haven't. So I just urge everybody, please. Okay, and I'll wrap this up pretty quickly here.
Need to wrap up.
Yeah, I just have 2 more points and then I'll get out of here. One of the other big concerns I think that you'll find about, you'll read about in a protest is streets. The plan or the 2015 Oklahoma City Citizens Survey was very, very glowing for the city, save one benchmark, and that was city streets. And only 11% of the people were satisfied with streets. And out in our area, that one block area that goes around this is some of the worst. Buck, you live out there. I don't think I have to tell you about what happens when you're trying to go to work in the morning, come home, trying to get your kids to school. There's a lot of elementary schools and things around there. David has said that they will look at that study, so I think we've got that addressed in here as well. And last thing I'll just point out is recreation. Lack of recreation in our area. Now that this golf course is out, there is no adult recreation in the southwest sector. I would take a little bit of a difference with David that the golf course is not viable. Actually, I have several private investors that I've contacted that are interested in that piece of property, and if this fails, I would love to get with his client and talk something about that. But there is an interest in doing that. The problem is the people that own the property, as I've approached them to go tell these investors, property owners say they want double what they paid for it, and that's what kills the deal. If there was a reasonable price or people would partner up, we could do something. But we have the Plan OKC that not only shows this as the highest area, or this, actually that tract of land right there.
Remind you, Mr. Larson, you need to wrap up. Okay.
Let me finish it up. That area shows that this is the highest area of identified for recreation in there, and it's not just a ring, it's not just there, but it's the footprint of this area around there. And lastly, we have the Southwest Sector Plan shows the same thing. The South, or the Parks Master Plan shows it. So, also in consideration, I know we can't do it here, but one thing I would like folks to hear is that we have 3 studies here that all say the same thing, where recreation should be. But what happens is these kind of turn into feel-good studies. When it comes time to actually follow the plan or something comes on, it's just not happening. Councilman, thank you for, Commissioner, thank you for allowing me to speak, and if you have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to address those.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners?
Mr. Box?
Yes, ma'am.
With respect to the specific point he was addressing, and when you were explaining it, I didn't understand it the same way at all as he explained it. So is the language of 9.1.3 really the best we can do as far as explaining the concept that you're trying to get across there?
We can massage the language however the commission would like, but our intent is exactly what the neighbors is to create a restriction where you would have multiple families in one structure. The way that we thought about doing it is, obviously, to get to the second floor, you'd have to have an exterior doorway to get there. So if you're prohibiting that with the language, then you're ensuring that the only way to access the second floor is through the interior or that family's unit. But we're happy. We can add a TE and we can massage it with the neighbors and staff, but our intent is the same as the neighbors. I've never been asked to draft that.
I'm not sure I have anything to suggest to you, but
and that came from, Mr. Lawson had to leave early. The other, I believe, 5 or 6 that were there, it came from collaborating with those neighbors that were there.
Yeah.
But we're happy to readdress it.
But you just might look at it. I get what you're trying to get to, and maybe this would, I'm not quite sure, but I applaud the effort and the idea.
Right.
It's kind of, when you stop and think about it, sort of a difficult thing to explain.
Right. And I did a poor job. But.
No, I'm not saying that.
Just to touch on one more issue. We certainly feel for the neighbors that there was a golf course here. My client bought this at auction. Certainly a golf course developer could have come to that auction as well and purchased it. But this is a tract that is in private hands, and I don't think it's the plan's intention to put the onus of providing public recreation onto a private developer on privately owned property. And so it's at least our opinion that, if this isn't going to be a golf course, and I'm confident that it will not, I believe, as proposed, this is a better development than what could be done with platting under the straight R1 and R3 zoning that exists. And all of the concerns that Mr. Lawson had, we certainly appreciate him working with us. We understand these issues, and when we go through all these studies, they're going to say what they say, and we're going to have to live with whatever the governmental agencies allow us to do within that framework.
David, would you or Ron, just talk about the types of structures we're going to have in all these tracks, just so it's clear?
Yeah.
No one's confused about what we're going to have there,
sure,
or what you're proposing there.
Let me start and get the, track 3 will be your traditional single-family homes. Track 2 will be, again, single-family homes limited to those that are 55 and older, and it will be a development similar to the Edinburgh-type developments where you've got the homes served off of the private drives. When we get to tract 1, which is the multiplex senior living, I had sent around and I encouraged any of those who had time to go look at Mr. Walter's other developments that will mirror this and be very similar. He has a product that is extremely high-end. He charges really high rent rates because his folks are moving out of homes that they own. They still want all the nice things that they've had while they've lived in their home, but they want to be able to call Ron or call somebody if their toilet breaks or if their sink stops working. And so he has one in Edmond, he has one in Moore, and what you'll see is it's a very high-end product. They've got clubhouses, they've got wonderful amenities, and here's some pictures that show all the different types of style. All brick, it meets the same architectural standard that this commission has asked for from developers, that being brick homes. But they're age restricted and they're people who want to live among other 55 and older, and want the ability to have activities. Ron, says that he's got a team that they're constantly putting on, like painting parties and movie nights, and it's geared towards making people be social, but they don't want to have to own the place where they live. Buck, is this, or Mr. Irwin, is this what you're?
Any other questions? Chair to entertain a motion. Were you signed up, ma'am?
I was.
Okay.
I was signed up, and I deferred, but
I need your
didn't
name and
wait.
address again, I'm
Mary
sorry.
Garrison,
Okay.
2005 Edinburgh Drive. There's just a couple of points I want to make. First of all, thanks to the developers for meeting with us and coming to some terms. One of the things we were really concerned about was changing Tract 1 to an R4. Nobody in that neighborhood wants the possibility of apartments. And I know the developer right now says that's not going to happen, but land can be sold. And an R4 goes with the land, I understand. So that was one of our big concerns. Tract 3 was negotiated separately with the neighbors there. So if you look, Tract 3 has a lot larger houses being built in that area. Compare it to Tract 2. That's another one of our concerns. But again, we appreciate the fact that they really did work with us. One of our major concerns is city services. The closest police station to Westbury is 20 minutes away. Sarah Road is a nightmare. Since we've lived in that neighborhood for 40 years, since then there's a school on Sarah Road. Traffic is backed up miles every evening when school's out and when people are coming home from work. And it's my understanding it will be many years before Sarah Road is, any work is done on Sarah Road. So that is another one of our concerns. I know that you all are interested in doing things that are environmentally good for our community. That's all we're asking, is that you keep that in mind, keeping in mind also that the developer has worked with us. We know we're not going to get our golf course back. We know we're not even going to get a park, but we would like houses that don't take away the value of the homes that are already there. Thank you.
The planned unit development, I mean, the whole process would have to go completely through the whole process again if that was rezoned. So that, maybe alleviate some of your problems.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners?
Yeah, I just want to make a few comments. Just so everyone understands, when you do a PUD, you're not doing straight zoning. So what is being proposed in the PUD is the only thing that would be allowed in this to be developed on this land. So even if it were sold to someone else, they would still have to honor the requirements of the PUD that's in place. Okay, so they couldn't come in and just say we want to build apartments. That wouldn't be possible. I like Marty said, I live in this area. I live less than a mile from here. So, and I've played golf on this golf course many times and wish it were still a golf course. Unfortunately, it's not. What I think we've got a situation here is that we've got a piece of land that is has all sorts of zoning on it. There are things that the developer could come in and do on this land right now because of the zoning that's on it that you would not like, okay? And I wouldn't like. So I think with what we're looking at here, the type of development we're looking at here being the age restricted is the type of development that's going to have much less of an impact on the area in terms of traffic and overall just impact to the services than you would see with a straight R1 zoning where you've got just houses built out there. We're not talking about apartment style buildings. These are fourplexes, fiveplexes, maybe on a few of them, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is, with very strict limitations on height, as you heard. 20% of them can go up to 2 stories, and that's all. And we've got an area, the area nearest to the homes that is restricted to 1 story. Can't have any 2 stories there. The Track 2 development is a product that we have seen, and we're seeing more and more of. We just have a development that went out in our area, actually, that's the same type product that I've toured, and is very nice, and it's very popular, and it's very upscale. I mean, these are very upscale type structures that people are paying a lot of money to live in. And yes, it's different. It's not your traditional neighborhood, but it is a very upscale type development. At the end of the day, before we plat this thing, we're going to do a traffic study. That traffic study is going to tell us what improvements, if any, need to be made to Sarah Road or whatever roads in that area. And those improvements will have to be made, which could help some of the problems that we have now in that area out there. And I drive through them every day, just like you guys, so I understand them. So where I come down on this thing, and while I would much rather have a golf course there, I don't see us having a golf course there. And I believe that at the end of the day, this type of development is far less impactful than about anything else we could have there. We're certainly not going to have apartments. We're certainly not going to have, we're going to have much less traffic because of the age restrictions. And so, based on that, I support this. And I want to make a recommendation to approve it. Now, did we have a TE that we needed to, what was that regarding?
On the language.
On the language about the
I don't know how we
multi-story.
How about we just
limiting?
We will commit to working with staff and the neighbors between now and council to make sure that whatever language, not only this staff but building permit staff feels comfortable that it couldn't allow what the neighbors are worried about.
Okay. Is that good enough? Okay.
And that includes your commitment to a traffic impact analysis?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Adding the traffic study, yeah, absolutely.
So we're revising the language that you just spoke of in a traffic impact analysis. Is that a TE? Or is that
let's make the traffic study a TE. Okay. As part of the platting process, we must do a traffic study.
So that would be TE2.
TE2.
Okay, is everybody clear?
That's
all those in favor of the motion?
Well, let me make a comment before we vote. I agree, and I think, Buck, your analysis is exactly correct. We wish it was a golf course. You've played there, but it's not. The other really significant factor in connection with the neighbors and their worries is that a PUD, once it's designated for that one area to be R3, it eliminates apartments. I mean, so the concern about apartment buildings, it sticks with the land, and whoever, if this doesn't work, it comes back in, they're going to have another battle on their hands to put apartments in there. And the other thing that the observation of when you first came up with this plan, and the protests, et cetera, but the street placement that they've done, to create like between my backyard and your front yard, well, I've got a street there that you've done that. The common area buffer that buffers this whole thing, age restrictions, I think you've done as much as you possibly could with your land that you have the right to do things on if it's not a golf course. So that's my comment. You've moved approval already? Okay.
You have something, Mr. Lawson?
Yeah, just real quickly. I'm sorry if I try to frame this as an argument about the golf course. That really wasn't the intent. But one thing that I would like for consideration is there was some unclarity with staff on the placement within the 100-year floodplain as in staff report. I would suggest, if I could, that we have clarity on that as well.
Right.
ordinances
we've got a
and
motion
standards,
and a
right? Okay.
to approve item 21. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye.
Thank you.
Okay, item 22 was continued. Items 23, 24, 25, and 26 are all connected. Item 23 is CPA 2015-1, changing the comprehensive plan land use designation in an area located west of South Mustang and north of Southwest 44th from the urban reserve typology to the urban low intensity typology.
Hi, thank you. I'm Randy Entz with the Planning Department, here to talk about this comprehensive plan amendment with you real quick. Good luck. All right. The request in front of you is to amend the comprehensive plan, changing an area located by Southwest 44th and Mustang Road by removing the urban reserve layer and designating it as urban low. As we're told, it does have 3 companion items, a rezoning, a PUD, and a preliminary plat, which will follow. Here's the overall city, and the area we're talking about is in the southwest quadrant, just north of Mustang. A blow-up of that area, and it's showing the surrounding area. It is currently urban reserve. It's currently undeveloped. It's at the northwest corner of Southwest 44th and Mustang Road. It's currently zoned AA, and it's at roughly 160 acres. The requested change would be to urban low intensity. The urban reserve layer is meant to hold areas until the area is ready for urbanization, which would allow it to develop at urban densities in the future when an efficient and sustainable delivery of city services is available. The proposed land use is urban low intensity, which is the least intensely developed area of the city, which still receives urban water, sewer, police, park, and fire services. Why this area is currently urban reserve? It was a need to hold land in the southwest sector to account for future market pressures. It is adjacent to State Highway 4 and other urban low areas that currently have services. Data at the time showed that there was a lack of immediate access to both sewer and water. And quite frankly, this is a borderline site kind of between the rural area and the current urban area. There's a blow-up of the subject area with the preliminary plat. So when we consider removing the urban reserve layer, we look at its ability to connect to water. The water service will be extended from an existing water line on Mustang Road, and there's also one on Southwest 44th Street, so it is adjacent to the site now. We look at the ability to connect to city sewer. There is gravity flow sewer in the area on the east side of this site. There's additional capacity that could be provided to the south as well that this site could connect to. We also look at the fire service in the area, and this area has a urban response time for fire service according to Plan OKC. Compatibility with surrounding area. There is UL, or urban low, to the south and east, so it's compatible to that. There's rural medium to the north and west. There should be special consideration given as this develops to ensure that it is compatible with that rural medium, which could be done through increased lot sizes around the edges or larger setbacks or landscaping, things of that nature. As far as the transportation system is concerned, Mustang Road and is State Highway 4 and Southwest 44th are arterials, and urban low-intensity land uses are appropriate on those arterials. Staff recommends approval, removing the urban reserve layer and designating the area as urban low intensity. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners?
Randy, I appreciate the presentation, and also in connection with what we talked about this morning, your presentation about that this is a moving object, that there are certain areas that were designated one thing that aren't appropriate. You know, this is one of those that you've checked all the boxes. And with that, I move approval of where you're applying for the an ordinance or the amendment. Is that what this is?
To
amend
remove the
the
urban
plan
reserve
OKC
area.
to allow this to be urban, what is it?
Urban low.
Yeah. Okay, but that's my motion.
A motion and a second to approve item 23. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye.
Item 24 is case PC 10-429 to rezone 11-445 Southwest 44th from AA to R1.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant who is with us today, Anthony Mirzai, as well as civil engineer Kendall Dillon. This is one of the companion pieces with the track that you just heard. This is the residential portion of the application. We're seeking to rezone this piece to R1. And if you look at an image of the other corners at this intersection, what you'll see is similar development patterns on 3 of the 4. If you look to the east, they've got straight R1. If you look to the south, they likewise have the straight R1. So now that that urban reserve has been lifted, this application does conform to the comp plan, and we would ask for your approval.
You approve the conditions?
This one doesn't have any.
Good.
Yeah. So we do agree with staff's analysis.
But I have a...
Commissioners.
There's the TEs. We didn't have any. This troubles me, this application. The way that I see that the plat that you're laying out the residence, and then this coming up is going to be that commercial portion that's not part of this one, but it's part of the whole thing. And the new plan OKC, we discussed this morning as well, has a connectivity aspect to it, and this has no connectivity at all, from the residential to the commercial. We don't have anything that's coordinating anything.
There is a TE in the commercial PUD asking for that, and we do agree to that TE through the commercial PUD.
So that'll take care of it. So
Yes.
what you'll have to do is redraw some of this stuff,
Yes.
right?
On the preliminary plat, correct. Because we do agree with that, so we will revise the plat to show the connectivity desired by the plan.
That's great. No, that's exactly what I think each one of these applications with that and commercial should comply with what the new plan says.
Any other comments? Motion?
I'll move for approval.
Motion and a second to approve item 24. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye.
And item 25 is PUD 1594 to rezone 4445 South Mustang Road from AA to PUD 1594.
Again, for the record, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the same individual and also with the same individual as the engineer. This PUD, what the attempt was, is to match the uses and other restrictions that were previously agreed to in the PUD east of this site as well as the PUD south of the site. And when you look through those two PUDs, what you see is a limitation on height of their signs similar to what we have. They allow one 15-foot monument, one 12-foot monument, and the rest are at 8 feet. That's what we seek to do here. The uses are consistent with those uses approved in those two PUDs, east and south. When we look at the TEs, we do agree with TE number 1. I will talk about 2 and 3. We do agree with TE 4 and 5. On TE 6, I would make the comment that we do agree with the traffic signal, except I'd like to qualify it so that, kind of in keeping with our discussion this morning, if at the time we go to develop this, impact fees are in place and we are paying those impact fees, we agree to obviously pay the impact fees and not have to get double dinged by paying the impact fees and also installing the traffic light. So if we develop prior to the impact fees being online, we agree to install the signal. If the impact fees are in place, we would ask that we just pay the impact fees as all other developments coming forward.
I have about, well, I'm not sure how that would work. You know, it's one or the other. But what the TE says is that you got a traffic problem, and there needs to be a traffic signal. And I would like to see a more affirmative yes to that TE, because this is going to be a problem already.
Sure.
We already know it.
Here's one. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's my, you know,
Okay.
I won't vote for this if you have EMD signs.
Okay.
I just won't do it. So, but I will give you, and the 15, 12, and 2.8, you know, that's okay. I mean, because I think you've got a really significant amount of stuff that goes up and down the street, but there's no reason to have flashing signs at all.
We can agree to take out EMD.
Okay?
Now, here's all we're saying on the traffic. If we go develop it now, there is a problem, and we will install that. Our fear is if we do not develop here in the short term, but we wait, you know, several years or a year, if those impact fees are already in place, those impact fees are going to be collecting money designed to do exactly what we'd agree to do here.
Okay, one observation, and that is in the discussion this morning at the UDC meeting, we talked about, I mean, some people were saying, well, I want to be grandfathered in. If I've already got my application, or if I have everything done, I'm grandfathered in. I'm not going to be affected by that. You know, the grandfathering in is where you will be, and you will have eliminated TE6.
No.
I don't know whether it's possible to solve that question here today. I mean, I agree that they shouldn't have to do both. The concern I would have about not requiring the traffic signal is that last little bit there at the initial phase, because part of the discussion that we were having this morning was we don't want to have to do things at the initial phase. We want to do them somewhere in the middle. And I think, you know, this is an improvement that would need to be done at the beginning. So whether, you know, I agree that you shouldn't, your client shouldn't have to do both.
Right.
I don't know how we deal with that particular issue with respect to this application, given that we're still in a process with the impact fees.
We can certainly work with legal, but we agree. I think we're all saying the same thing. If we go and turn dirt before those impact fees, we absolutely will have to go construct that, and we agree to do that. It's just in the after scenario where impact fees are already in place, we want to be able to pay the impact fee. So we're happy to work
I'm not sure I want you to have that option.
I think it's the only equitable way to do it.
The idea that you shouldn't have to do both, I get that. I might prefer that you go ahead and put the traffic signal in rather than pay your impact fee.
But then the problem is impact fees are still being collected off everything else, and there's no way to exempt us under the ordinance, and so we would still have to be paying for it as well as other people.
Well, and that's what I say. I don't know whether we can solve that today. I mean, again, I don't think you should have to do both. I'm not sure I would want you to be able to decide to pay the fees rather than put in the traffic signal, because I think that's what we need. The signal's what we need.
I don't think there's a way, though, to – I think the language we propose is the only way to get there, because if the ordinance gets passed, I mean, they're not going to make specific exemptions for specific developers. So the only way to do it, I think, is to say we'll do it unless impact fees are in place, and then the impact fees will obviously take care of this
I don't
issue.
know about that. I mean, I don't know about that. I was biting my tongue this morning, didn't speak up. But I do think that it would not be appropriate for developers who have made improvements, and here's a real good example of one, to have to then also pay impact fees. That's very different to me than a situation where, you know, sort of theoretically I'm moving a business from one place to another and I should get credit and, you know, it's the same owner or not the same owner. That was a whole different thing. The idea that you should be given some sort of, I don't know whether you would call it grandfathering in or credit or what, for improvements that you have already specifically made and paid for, that kind of makes sense to me. And how we would deal with that, I don't know, but it seems to me like that's an idea that probably needs to have a little thought put into it. how we resolve this particular issue here today. I'm not quite sure. You want to help us out, Daniel?
It's hard to say right now, but how the impact fee is going to work. So at this point, I think the best you can do is require him to install the improvements. And then if the impact fee comes about, then we can worry about it then.
But then we'll still have to pay the impact fees. That'll operate as nothing but a tax at that
Well,
point.
no, and that's what we're saying. I don't think anybody thinks you ought to have to do both. The question is just how we...
I think we can work that out.
He thinks we can work it out.
I agree completely with Mr. Brummer that we can work it out.
And so you leave T6 in.
But we don't, I mean, can we modify it as I proposed with the agreement that we understand nobody thinks that we should have to do the signal and pay the impact fee. So between now and council, we can work out the specifics of how that will function.
Can we modify it to say they will install the signal and then there'll be some arrangement made regarding credits to,
you know, or something? The cost of the signal out of the impact fees.
Out of their impact fees, yeah.
Let me clarify this real quick. I think that there's some language in the proposed ordinance that allows the city to reimburse a developer for installing something that would be installed that meets the criteria of what the impact fee is meant to pay for. So it would be that portion of the impact fee could be credited back if the developer does it on their own dime.
So
that's new. That's a new provision that was added in so that if a developer needed to put infrastructure in place immediately or prior to the development going in, they could do that, and then the city could use the impact fee portion to reimburse them for that.
But what happens in this scenario if we don't develop for several years, and then the impact fees are already online, and they need to go in because east of us is developing?
Yeah, I don't know how that would play out. If the impact fee ordinance is passed with that language in it right now, and then you went and did the improvements, and then were charged the impact fee, that portion of what you installed could be credited back.
If I may, again, for the record, Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll. And, you know, to me, I think we're overcomplicating a little bit, because I think you have the best of both worlds in a sense, because that's obviously what has helped to spur on and to bring about the development fees is this issue in particular, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to force one developer to make 100% of those improvements. And so if you look at all we're asking to do is, as we sit here today, there's not an impact fee in place. We understand that. There's a provision, but we don't know if that provision is going to stay or if it's going to be modified or what's going to happen. The commitment that you all are getting from us is you have one or the other. You have the development impact fees are the way to make it equitable, and the whole point and purpose is so that one person doesn't have to bear it, but you all as a city get mitigation for the development. If you look at what we're asking to do, we're just simply saying, hey, with our first phase, if we go and the impact fees are not in place, we'll put the signal in. But if we delay a year or 6 months and the impact fees come in, that was the intent and purpose of the impact fees, so why should we have to go and put that signal in? So I think if you look at all we're trying to do is we're just simply saying, hey, you've got us, we'll put the signal in, or if the intent of the impact fees is for this, if the impact fees were in place, we wouldn't be having the argument, we'd be paying the impact fees. So all we're trying to say is you've got us either way, but we want to make certain in the TE that it reads that way so that we don't end up, however the ordinance is structured, putting in the signal and then paying impact fees on top of it. So we're just, you've got us. It's just a matter of semantics on the TE. You're going to get your funds.
I think that was one of the comments made this morning, is that, you know, we need some kind of a grandfather type thing in the ordinance. And I think that's, you know, one of the things that we need to look at before we actually, you know, approve it.
And if that happens as part of the resolution, then but you still have the same thing. Yeah. Either we're going to put it in or we're going to pay those impact fees. If we put it in, okay, we may be grandfathered, so it may solve it. But either way, you're going to get your mitigation from our development.
So maybe the language that Aubrey was talking about needs to be in the ordinance.
Yeah, and to your point, I think the city gets a better deal here, because instead of there being no commitment, there is a commitment in case something happens with these impact fees that, this one developer is going to go pay for 100% of it. So I think we're all saying the same thing. It's just trying to finesse the language.
How do we move forward on this?
I think we could just modify the TE.
6.
6, yes. Well, so to start, so TE number 2 needs to be deleted. TE number 3 is staying in.
So 6 is the only one that really needs to be.
No, we're prohibiting. 2's gone. 3's in, 1's in, 4's in, 5's in, and 6. My advice or my goal would be that it reads, and then we add that provision that unless the initial phase happens after the impact fee ordinance has been approved, then the developer will pay impact fees and not bear the 100% cost of the traffic improvement.
Is that agreeable? Does that sound good, Dan? Okay.
Oh. I apologize. We would like, on TE number 4, we would like 3. Isn't that what that's saying?
Would like what?
No, we're fine. Sorry. Kendall confused me.
It's okay.
We're okay.
Okay. So we're good with everything except 6, and we're going to modify it like you said. Okay. Right.
You are aware, perhaps, that with the size of this commercial development, with the cost per square foot for non-residential impact fees, may well exceed the cost of a traffic signal.
It will, but we're going to have to pay him either way.
You're going to write a whole bunch of checks on that one because of the size of this development.
Sure.
Which would pay for the traffic signal.
But we don't get to pay for the traffic signal and exempt ourselves from the impact.
No, we're not asking for a double dip. I don't think anybody here is saying you pay for that and then you pay for the whole impact fees. If there's a proviso that you want to put in, but I'm not smart enough to draft it right here with all of us here, and maybe Dan can.
Are we clear on what we're voting on? Is everybody clear?
I'm clear.
Okay.
I'm not voting.
And do we have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to approve it as stated.
Yeah,
we are deleting TE2, so how I understand it, and then we're revising TE6 as stated prior to council.
Okay. And we got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Let the record show all voted aye.
And item 26 is C6748, the preliminary plat of Montage located west of Mustang and north of Southwest 44.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. This is the plat that goes with the development we've been talking about on the TEs. We agree with all of them except for 3. This is the exact issue we just discussed. So I would ask that whatever language we just approved in TE6 on the last application, we mirror that on TE3 here. I'm sorry? I believe that was in the commercial. It's TE number 5 in the commercial PUD. It says the site plan and PU documents shall be revised to provide vehicular and pedestrian interconnection.
Yeah. Add that to this.
It's in the commercial.
It's in yeah. It was a TE we agreed to in the commercial PUD, so it's in place.
Okay.
I think Randy mentioned a minute ago in his presentation the concept of, I don't remember exactly what it said, Randy, but a buffering between the more dense and the neighbors that are already there that are.
Yes, the
What'd you
comp
call
plan
that?
calls for being compatible with your surrounding uses. So in the case of this style of residential next to the larger lot, rural style residential, the comp plan calls for some sort of step down or buffering.
So are there any standards for that or guidelines?
The comp plan recommends being 40% of the rural lot size, which would, I think they're 5 acres, so that would make it 2-acre lots alongside those, or creating some other sort of buffer or barrier that would protect those.
talked about this in concept. I mean, what would you guys be willing to do there?
I think what we would be willing to do is, even though it's agricultural, obviously the zoning ordinance does not apply. However, there is the ordinance that, when you abut adjacent lots, that you'd go up 75% up to 7,500 square feet. So we will agree that that's what we will do. So all the lots that abut the AA will make that a minimum of 7,500 square feet.
Well, it doesn't excite me too much. It's better than what we have, but
What are they now?
They're 6,000 to 6,600.
That from anyone? Yeah, I guess with that in mind, we're going to go with 7,500 square foot lots around the periphery.
Okay. We can add that as TE number 9.
And I will move to approve the application.
We're adding the same language, David, to
Yeah,
the...
TE3.
Yeah, TE3, yes.
Right.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve item 26. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye.
Thank you.
Item 27 is CPA 2015-4 to amend the comprehensive plan land use designation in an area located west of South Council Road and south of Southwest 104th from rural low intensity to urban low intensity.
Thank you. Randy Entz once again with the Planning Department. The area in question here is also in the southwest quadrant, and it is a request to amend the comprehensive plan to change the land use typology from rural low intensity to urban low intensity. There is an associated PUD with it that will be heard later on. The area in question is highlighted in the land use map from the plan, right there on your screen. A blow-up of the area. A little bit of context, it is in the rural low-intensity area, surrounding, or it's currently undeveloped, and it's zoned mostly RA. There's some agricultural zoning on the section line roadside, council roadside of the property. It's roughly 52 acres, and the requested LUDA is urban low. Rural low intensities are intended to preserve large lot neighborhoods and residential acreages. There's intended to remain there with no expectation of receiving city services and no expectation of urbanization in the future. The proposed land use is the least intensive land use that is still urban in nature and intended to have access to all those city services: water, sewer, police, fire, and park. The reasons it was designated for rural low is gravity sewer is not available. Connectivity would require connecting almost 2 miles to the nearest sewer line. Much of the surrounding area is already developed in 5-acre parcels, which is more of the rural style of development. Okay. When looking at the density ranges, the rural low intensity is meant to have a minimum lot size of 5 acres and the typical lot size from 5 to 10 acres, and that's what you see a lot out there. The proposed density would put it more in the 2 units per, or 4 to 6 units per acre range. So, when considering whether to change the designation from urban low, we looked at the ability to connect to existing water and gravity sewer. Water is accessible due to the RA development directly north of here. Sewer is not, as we discussed earlier. Private septic systems are being proposed with the development. Another consideration for lifting that is that it should be contiguous with other urbanized areas. It is not, is mostly surrounded by rural low land use typology. There is some urban reserve directly south of it, but it is not currently ready to be served. As you can see, north is rural low, east is rural low, to the south is the urban reserve, and directly west, not directly west, but Directly west is rural medium. Sorry. It also should be within the urban response time for fire service to be designated urban low. The response times here are generally longer than for the urban areas. It's in the orange as opposed to the green, which we would like to see. For the transportation system, South Council Road is a 2-lane rural minor arterial without curb and gutter. It's substandard for urban use. It's meant to serve low-density areas, and as most roads out there are a 2-lane section line road. Because of those considerations, we didn't feel it was ready to be designated as urban, so we were recommended to deny the request amending the comprehensive plan. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, anybody?
Well, I just have a comment, Randy. I appreciate your presentation on any of these applications that come in for an amendment to the plan. You know, the first application that you came in and presented yourself, you approved of it. I mean, the department would approve that amendment. And the next one we're going to hear is also the staff is recommending approval of an amendment just because of the considerations. This one doesn't fit. And I think that if we do anything, it's preserve what we did with Plan OKC and stay with it to the extent that it doesn't comply with those areas that we really want to preserve for certain, like rural. And so if anybody else has any comments, you know, I would move to deny it.
A motion and a second to deny the application. All those in favor? Record show all voted aye. What does that do with item number 28? Does this? Go ahead.
Item number 28 is the companion item for the planned unit development, PUD 1597 to rezone 10925 South Council Road from AA and should say and RA to PUD 1597.
Brad Reed with Crafts and Soul. This is a companion item with what you just heard. This area, it's sort of a strange area. It's able to be served by public water. There is an existing connection into the addition immediately to the north. There's also one at 104th and Council that we'll bring down to our entrance. Current zoning is RA, which allows for a lot size of 30,000 square feet. We're asking for half acre. This is for the ability, the fact that it can't sewer with ODEQ requirements that have a septic system on at least half an acre. There is, as you can see, this entire, there's on the corner that's not, but most of this north section is already zoned as rural estates type addition. There's a half acre addition in PUD 1224, Southern Preserve Phase 2. We think that this fits in with the land use in the area. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So what are the lot sizes in the two neighborhoods that abut this?
Immediately to the north is a 1 acre. Immediately to the west is 1 acre, but the Southern Preserve Section 2 is half acre, which is the one immediately west of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we got one lady that would like to, Debbie Brandt. Need your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Brandt. Address is 8500 Southwest 111th Court, which is the property just west of the area that they're looking to rezone. My husband and I purchased this lot less than 3 months ago on August 24th, and we chose this lot specifically because of the tree line, the wildlife, and the fact that it was very quiet. So you can imagine our disappointment when we'd been there 2 weeks and received this notice that this one was going to be rezoned. I'm not here necessarily to object However, I speak for our neighbors as well, that we are not excited at all about the half-acre lots. Our acreage is almost 2 acres, which is the acreage just to the left or just to the west. And our neighbors that adjoin right there as well, I think is 1.5 acres, up to 2 acres. But we specifically want to request that the tree line remain, not only to protect our privacy, the wildlife, and the level of noise, but also to protect our property values. Thank you.
Commissioners?
Well, I think to be consistent with the vote we just took on the prior application, this doesn't comply with the plan, and I would recommend denial.
You move the motion. Second.
Got a motion and a second to deny item 28. All those in favor? The record show all voted aye.
Item 29 is CPA 2015-3 to amend the comprehensive plan in an area located east of North Cemetery Road and south of Northwest 10th Street by changing the designation from urban reserve to urban low intensity.
Randy Entz, once again with the Planning Department. The request before you is to amend the comprehensive plan from urban reserve to the urban low intensity. It does have an associated rezoning, which you will hear after this. Once again, we're in the southwest quadrant of the city. We're close to 10th and Cemetery Road. There's a blow up of the subject side. It's currently urban reserve. Its current land uses around and in that area are commercial. There's some ag, undeveloped land, and some residential. It's zoned AA, C3, and there's a PUD on it as well. It's roughly 70 acres in size. The requested LUDA is urban low intensity. As you heard earlier, the intent of the urban reserve is to hold that land until the area is ready for urbanization and keep it ready for developing an urban densities in the future when it's efficient and sustainable to deliver city services there. The urban low intensity is the least intensely developed urban area in the city that still receive the urban water, sewer, police, park, and fire. The reason it received that urban reserve designation is due to a ridge line that was there at the time we collected data on this. Analysis indicated that it would not be able to be served with gravity sewer north of that ridge line. That's the green line you see going across your map. And the fire service did not meet the urban level of service in the area. Considerations for removing this reserve layer is the ability to connect to the existing city water. There's a 16-inch main along North Cemetery Road and a 12-inch water main along Northwest 10th that can serve the site. As far as connecting to the city sewer, it actually can. We've now determined with new data that it can be served with a gravity flow sewer system. There's an 8-inch line installed along Cemetery Road that it can attach to. As far as the fire service, it is longer than the urban response times, response times desired for the urban areas of the plan. It is in the more rural area, fire service area. As far as compatibility, the urban low intensity is consistent with the surrounding area. North of this side is the city of Yukon and several commercial developments. To the east is urban low intensity and areas that are being developed as commercial. To the south is urban low intensity, and to the west is rural medium, which are 5-acre lots generally. The transportation system, Northwest 10th and North Cemetery Road, are both 4-lane major arterials. The intersection is improved and signal controlled, and North Cemetery Road, also known as Garth Brooks Boulevard, is State Highway 92. Both streets are appropriate for the uses associated with the urban low intensity. The staff recommendation in this area is to approve the request for removing the urban reserve layer, designating the subject as urban low intensity. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
How is it that this particular application was initiated by staff?
Due to the data that changed, in the area. We felt that it would have been done with the next update of the plan anyway, and because of the commercial application that was there, we felt it was time to go ahead and look at the area in its entirety. So.
Okay.
I'll move to adopt the resolution.
Motion and a second to adopt the resolution on 30. All those in favor? Making sure all voted aye.
And item 30 is PC 10432 to rezone 900 North Cemetery.
I said item 30, that was item
29.
29.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Rezone 900 North Cemetery from AA to C3.
Good afternoon. For the last time, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. Again, this is a companion item of what you just heard. If you look at the zoning surrounding this, we are surrounded by C3 to the north, to the west. Just north of 10th Street is obviously that mega retail complex in the city of Yukon. What we propose here is certainly consistent with the surrounding area. Staff does recommend approval, and we would ask for same and be happy to answer any questions.
I'll move for approval.
A motion and a second to approve item 30. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Making sure all voted aye.
And the remaining items were continued, except for item 35, to introduce the art master plan and set for adoption at a public hearing on December 10th. On December 10th, our arts liaison, Robbie Kinsel, will be here to give a full presentation about the arts master plan to the commission.
Move to set the, introduce the art master plan and set for public hearing on December 10th.
A motion and a second to approve item 35. All those in favor? Making sure all voted aye. Okay. Planning Commission committees, any reports? Planning Commission members. Planning Department. Development Services. Municipal Counselor. No. Citizens. Anybody here to be heard? Any other business? Move to adjourn. A motion and a second.